Hey smokers, knockoff Jiraga1 here, and in today's video we have the ultimate Dell gaming machine which we're going to be upgrading with a hard drive. There's been a lot of discussion about the increased pricing for RAM, GPUs, storage, and potentially even entire computers, but as you can see here, we pretty much have the peak in personal computing and Macintosh because, well, at least from the viewpoint of 2010, this hardware is fantastic. And you know what? Even in the modern day here, it's still awesome to use this old hardware because it just works. Like, there's no issues with the hardware as long as it's set up correctly. And the best part is that it's compatible with software that actually does its job. It doesn't always need an internet connection, it just works. Speaking of 2010, that's when the system was manufactured. Now, this Dell OptiPlex, on the other hand, it was made in 2014, and even though there isn't that big of a difference in terms of the manufacture dates, this is a completely different system because it has a 4th gen i5 processor, specifically the 4570 clocked in at 3.2 gigahertz, and it also has 12 gigabytes of RAM. Now, I've installed a 128 gigabyte SSD inside the system, and even though it's technically not Windows 11 supported, that means it's a good thing because I can stay on Windows 10, and I've actually started to use this as my Windows file server. So basically, I just download Windows applications, installers, games, and other utilities for Windows. However, with that SSD though, we're going to have to upgrade the storage soon because even though it's fine for now, it would be nice to have an additional hard drive, something like this, to actually house all the applications because the SSD is fantastic as a boot drive, but if you're going to use this as a server, it would be nice to have way more storage, which is exactly what I've done with my Hackintosh. Now this is an OptiPlex 780, and the case design is identical to this. So basically what you see here is the system over there. There are some differences inside though. Obviously it's a 780 and this is a 380. Now what that means is that this only has 2 RAM slots on the motherboard. The 780 has 4. This also has a Pentium processor. Now it's not like a Pentium 4 or anything older like that. It's basically like a lower end Core 2 Duo. Meanwhile, the 780 has a proper Core 2 Duo chipset. This has a Pentium E5400 inside, and from what I can tell, it's still a pretty solid chipset to use, and I guess I could always upgrade it, but it's working fantastic as it is right now. And even though we could also upgrade the RAM from 2 gigabytes to something higher, for the way we're going to use this system, 2 gigabytes is going to be plenty. The 780 also has 4 gigabytes installed, which is excellent for macOS and other modern tasks, but that's a completely different system, and obviously it's a Hackintosh. This is actually going to be used as a Windows machine. So we're going to have a Windows 10 system, and you might be thinking that we're going to install Windows 7 on this. To be fair, it is era appropriate. It even has a Windows 7 sticker on the top there, but I have plenty of other machines which are newer and can still run Windows 7, such as this OptiPlex. So we're going to make use of the kind of low-end hardware here and install an older copy of Windows so that way it makes it look like a supercomputer. We're going to install Windows XP. Even though I do have some dedicated Windows XP machines, the ones with actual designed for Windows XP stickers, the issue with some of those is that they're going to take some work to get them up and running again. Now, some of them don't have hard drives, some of them have barely working hard drives, and the ones that do still work, they still have their factory install of Windows. Now, of course, I could just use the system as is, but because they also have the recovery partition on the hard drive, I want to archive the entire drive and save it as is, so that way I can always have a backup copy of Windows for that machine the way it came from the factory, because, it's Windows XP and having a recovery tool like that is always nice to have, but they are older hard drives and it would be nice to have at least one backup of every install. Of course, we can also get some adapters to convert IDE into SATA so we can use a hard drive like this in the future. It would be nice to have some of those, but until we get some, we have this Dell right here, which is otherwise not being used. So I think it would make for a really awesome XP machine, and not to mention a really good bridge machine between Windows 10 and other older systems on the network. And of course, we can still upgrade the system further with video cards, other PCI cards, and potentially some extra hard drives. The other awesome part about this is that the Dell website still has official drivers for XP, Vista, and 7. So I downloaded all of the ones available for XP for this machine. They are on the Dell OptiPlex right here. Like I said, I'm starting to use it kind of like a server, so having all of those backed up in one location is awesome because we may need those once we set up Windows. But before we do any of that, we need to open this up and install this. The OptiPlex is actually operational as it is because it does have a hard drive and it does have a copy of Windows. Now the hard drive in this, I believe it's not the original factory drive because it was manufactured in 2007, but it does have a fresh copy of Windows 7 installed, and it also does have the Dell information within about this PC. Just like with the Windows XP machines, I want to make a copy of the hard drive here, at least the Windows 7 install, because it's always nice to have a backup. But in the initial video where we took a look at this machine alongside the OptiPlex 780, we did clean it up, but there really wasn't that much dust inside to begin with. The reduced feature set within this motherboard is exactly why I chose the 780 to be the Hackintosh. We only have 2 RAM slots instead of 4, but we do still have 3 PCI lanes, 1 PCIe for a graphics card, and even though the motherboard clearly has the pins for a floppy connector, as you can see, it's not there. Now this is probably because it's a newer motherboard. To be fair, I'm pretty sure the 780 also has this in the exact same way, where it does have the pins for it, but it doesn't have any connector at all. One advantage that this has though is that it has a built-in speaker. Not just the PC beeper, which you can see right next to the CMOS battery, which I have changed out because it was complaining all the time that the time and date wasn't set, and I wasn't even able to access the BIOS until I changed out the battery. I'm not sure if that was a keyboard issue or something else going on with the system, but that has been changed, and it's the only thing I've done within the system itself just to make sure that we have a smoother experience with Windows XP, at least the install process. I'm also not really concerned about the lack of a floppy drive here because I'm probably going to end up using the optical drive way more. I have a lot more software on CD and DVD as compared to on floppies, and if I do want to use a floppy drive, I can always just use it on an older PC tower once we get those up and running. Within the OptiPlex Hackintosh, I did unplug the optical drive to make use of the connection for another hard drive. Now, even though there is an extra SATA port on the motherboard, there isn't an extra SATA power connector on the power supply. We do have this 4-pin connector, which is the same on the other power supply as well, but I don't have an adapter for this to SATA, so for the meantime, I just unplugged it. For this though, because we're just going to use one hard drive, like I said, the other one is going to remain untouched until we at least make a backup of that Windows 7 install. It's always awesome to work with one of these Dell machines because, as you can see, the optical drive just slides out of the way and we have easy access to the hard drive. Now this is a Seagate drive, and like I said, I don't think this is the factory drive because it has a date code of 2007. It is a Barracuda 7200 drive. It is only 80 gigabytes in size, but you know what? It's a working hard drive, and I'm going to leave it inside the machine so that way I know that this install of Windows is for this OptiPlex. To help us install the new hard drive here, we have CAD, Cardboard Aided Design. And this is some of the super cardboard that I've used over there on the panel system and basically the entire shelf here. It's really great to work with because, like cardboard, it's easy to cut, but it's also not like cardboard because, well, and this is going to be a good insulator between this hard drive and that one. Now, I'm not concerned about heat because obviously this is not going to be powered up, and this is a smaller hard drive, so it doesn't generate as much heat as compared to this style of drive. And I've also measured this piece to fit perfectly on top of the pre-existing drive here, so all we have to do is plug this in, and we're going to have an up and running system in no time. The hard drive that we're going to install is another Seagate drive. It's a momentous drive. It's 640 gigabytes, so plenty of storage for Windows XP here. The Barracuda itself, like I mentioned, it's only 80 gigabytes, but it does have the advantage of being a 7200 RPM drive. I believe that this one is only 5400, but you know what? I don't care. It's Windows XP. It was designed to run on a hard drive in the first place, and I have way more hard drives as compared to SSDs, and it's just going to enhance the Windows XP hard drive experience. I don't think you can install a hard drive in a more professional way. I'm pretty sure this is how they do it at the factory. So once you have power, you just plug that into the drive, then you take the SATA connection for data, and of course the bracket is installed. It's not going anywhere. And then afterwards, you just take the optical drive, and all you have to do is reconnect it back to where it's supposed to sit. Yeah, making sure to not move that hard drive, right? And then, just like that, our Dell has now been upgraded. Perfect. Now we just need Windows XP. Why is it on a DVD? Well, the reason why is because this is a rewritable disk, and I wanted to make sure that the ISO image would work. Now, the cool thing about Windows 10 on that machine right there is that it has built-in ISO burning management utilities, like basically everything you would need for a CD or a DVD. It's built into Windows 10, which is pretty cool, and I burned the ISO image onto this with that OptiPlex because it does have an optical drive, and I was going to burn this onto a CD, but it works, and I don't feel like making another disk, at least for right now. But if we do rewrite over this with another installer in the future, at least I know now that the Windows copy that I have works completely fine. The other cool part about this install process is that we don't have to use a floor setup anymore because we have this awesome desk setup right here. And best of all, we can experience Windows XP on our beige Samsung LCD. Now that is a Dell computer. It is so awesome to see this computer desk from 2003 have an actual computer on it. Now this area is intended to be like a testing setup to make sure a computer or whatever system actually works, because we have a monitor configured, we have power, Ethernet, and of course I'm going to set up the keyboard and mouse. So I don't plan on using just this system here. I'm sure that after we set it up, we can find another spot, whether it be right next to the other OptiPlex over here or somewhere else. It also saves a lot of time here because I don't have to get a random monitor out just to set up a system on the floor. So for video, we have VGA. All we have to do is plug this into the Dell, and just like that, the monitor situation is taken care of. Same goes for Ethernet. I have this Ethernet cable right here, and we just need to plug this into the Dell, and we're connected to the network. Now with all of these different setups here, I like having separate keyboards and mice. I don't have any KVM switches or anything like that. Yet despite that, with all the keyboards that I have, I still sometimes need to borrow between one system and another because, well, in this case, I haven't used this OptiPlex up until now, so I haven't had a dedicated keyboard set aside for it. So this one I've actually been using with the OptiPlex Hackintosh, and I even have basically the same keyboard, but the multimedia edition set up with the 3020 OptiPlex. And fortunately, I still have a lot of keyboards that I need to clean up and restore, but that's going to take a while to get to because I need to clean them up and restore them. Now, if you want to see keyboard restoration videos, then consider subscribing because I'm sure we're going to have some of those in the future as well. I've made some in the past, and, well, I don't have any shortage of keyboards for now, so yeah, we have this awesome keyboard to match with the system. You can tell that it's an older keyboard because the Dell logo is actually 3D. Now, we could use a standard wired Dell mouse to use alongside the keyboard here, but instead of doing that, I have this random wireless mouse, which honestly, I'm not entirely sure where I got this from, but we're going to test it out, see how well it works, and if it does end up working well, then I'm going to use it more often, because it is nice to have wired accessories, especially with the keyboards and how everything is set up here. But sometimes it's also really convenient to just have a wireless mouse because, well, it's wireless. It's not a Logitech or anything fancy like that, but again, if it works out well, then it works. So we have our beige Samsung display here. And with that, we can power up the Dell. Well, that's kind of obvious because it's an empty hard drive. We still have to install Windows in the first place. So for now, we can go into the setup utility, which has that classic 2000s Dell appearance. And the mouse is acting a bit strange here, but that's probably just because, you know, it's the integrated system here. So here you can see our Pentium dual-core CPU, the E5400 at 2.7 gigahertz. And we also have DDR3 RAM with Windows XP. That's going to be really awesome to see in action. The date and time is correct because of the new battery, and as for the boot sequence, I have changed it so that way the CD-ROM drive is the first one, because we're going to be using optical media to install Windows XP. But after we're done with that, I will switch it over so that way the hard drive is the first one. And of course, we do have multi-core support. So all 2 of the cores on this dual-core CPU will be enabled for some very fast performance. And we also have Intel registered SpeedStep trademark. This is also enabled because why not? So once we have our optical media ready to go, we just need to exit out of this menu. Now that is exactly what we want to see. Now the optical drive is pretty noisy because I'm pretty sure it's actually because of the desk, because it's not on a completely flat surface. It's kind of elevated, so it's not on the floor directly. Now this is how a Windows installation should be. It's completely offline, it works on optical media, and it has 3 simple but very effective options. To set up Windows XP, press Enter. To repair Windows XP, press R. And if you want to quit the setup, just press F3. Best of all, it doesn't ask you to connect to the internet or sign into your Microsoft account. And just like that, with our noisy optical drive, we can start the setup process. Press F8, and here we have our new untitled space. And we're just going to do it with a quick format because it's empty and I know the drive is in good shape. Please wait while setup copies files to the Windows installation folders. This might take several minutes to complete. Please wait while setup initializes your Windows XP configuration. Now that is exactly what we want to see. Now this is just amazing. An exciting new look. Windows Registered XP Professional sports a visual design that combines a sleek look, clean lines, and appealing colors with a task-oriented design and exceptionally streamlined navigation. The redesigned Start menu makes it easier to find most important information and to access the programs that you use most frequently. Try the easiest Windows registered trademark yet. Windows XP makes it easy to manage all of your information. We've enhanced the My Documents and My Pictures folder to make them more useful, back when they actually tried to improve Windows and not make it worse. Windows XP Professional also supports integrated CD recording, so now you can easily save files to a CDR or CD rewritable drive. Stay up to date. Windows Update provides you with critical software updates and hardware support files for Windows registered trademark XP. And Setup gives you the opportunity to ensure that you have the latest software to install Windows quickly and successfully. For corporate customers, there have been great improvements to the system preparation tool as well as unattended setups. Your computer will be faster and more reliable. Get support for the latest hardware and software. Windows registered trademark XP Professional supports a large number of programs and has built-in support for the latest hardware. When you insert a floppy disk, zip registered trademark disk, CD, or memory card from your digital camera, Windows XP identifies the content and automatically starts the appropriate program. Windows XP Professional also supports DVD RAM drives. That's actually pretty cool to know. I did not know that XP actually had that support built in. Easily move documents and personal settings to a new computer. Surfing the internet. Safe, fast, and flexible. Windows registered trademark XP includes the most secure version of Internet Explorer to date. Many new features help enhance the security and privacy of information that you send and receive over the internet. This right here is an example of a Microsoft product that is actually good. Something that Microsoft made back in the day when they used to care about their OS. So we do have wireless mouse support, which is awesome to see, and the default settings here are correct, so we're just going to click on Next. And of course, this is also correct. So we have Steve here and Apple Computer Incorporated. It can't just be an only Windows experience when you have all of these Macintosh computers here. So with this, we'll click on Next. And as for the product key, it's on the other OptiPlex here. And as for the computer name itself, I'll leave this as OptiPlex 380, so that way we know it's this specific machine on the network. Windows is going to finalize with all the options that we selected. And again, this is just an amazing setup page because it's Windows XP. It just looks fantastic. Windows registered trademark XP is great for notebook computers. Windows XP makes wireless networking with your computer easy and secure so you can work where you want, when you want. And with Windows XP, wireless networking configuration is seamless and automatic. It's also the most dependable Windows registered trademark for business computing. Built on the proven reliability of Windows 2000, Windows XP Professional offers features that improve the stability of your computer. I really do need to reinstall Windows 2000 on my 2001 OptiPlex because it is a pretty solid version of Windows to have. Enjoy using Windows registered trademark XP. Can you imagine if this said enjoy using Windows 11? Now this is pretty advanced. Windows will automatically adjust your screen resolution. And yeah, we can read that, so there we go. Please wait. Welcome to Microsoft Windows. Let's spend a few minutes setting up your computer. So instead of the Windows 10 or 11 style setup where it says getting things ready, it actually says your computer. I think we're also supposed to have the setup music, but we may not have the proper audio drivers, so for now, we'll just click on Next. And as for automatic updates, I will click on Not Right Now because we are going to take a look at Legacy Update and Update XP that way because, well, the built-in way doesn't really work anymore. And take a look at this. No information is collected that can be used to identify you or contact you. Nowadays, they want your Microsoft account, but back then, they specifically said no information is collected, at least for identification. And of course, it just knows. It just knows that it's Steve's computer. So let's go ahead and click on Next. And just like that, we're done. Thank you. Congratulations, you're ready to go. To learn about the exciting new features of Windows XP, take the product tour. You can also find useful information in the Help and Support Center. These options are located on the Start menu, back when the Start button meant something. Now this is the way Windows was meant to be. Now I'm pretty sure we're going to have to install more than just the audio drivers here, but even with the way it is right now, it still looks fantastic. We have amazing textures here within Windows itself, like the Start button. It actually has a shadow and 3D effect to it. So if you go into properties here for my computer, you can see that it is Steve's computer, Apple Computer Incorporated, because how else are you going to test out iTunes on Windows if you don't have a Windows PC? Here we have the Pentium itself. It is actually detected by XP even without the updates here, so that's cool to know. And there is our 2 GB of RAM. So even if you have no RAM, that's no problem at all, because if we go into Task Manager and we check out performance, yeah, it's using like no RAM at all. And if we go into Device Manager here, we can see that we actually have a fair amount of missing drivers here. So we have no audio driver. We don't have Ethernet either, so I'm going to transfer this first onto the system, and then I'm going to set up networking so that way the OptiPlex 3020 can easily communicate with this. And we are missing the video driver as well, and I'm pretty sure this is like a system bus driver. Dell also has that driver on the website as well. Nowadays, with newer copies of Windows Update itself would find the drivers for your machine, but we're doing this the old school way. Now this is an update package. So let's go ahead and click on install. And we have the classic install shield wizard here. Broadcom Net Extreme. It even tells us with a nice green check mark here that it's done. And we do have a connection. So that is awesome to see. Now, I don't necessarily think that it'll show up within network places yet. I don't have the work group configured yet. I'm also not too sure if Windows 10 will natively just show up here within XP. So I might in the future actually create a Windows 7 server to more easily navigate stuff. But on the Windows 10 side of things, if it does show up on the OptiPlex 3020, then I'll just use Windows 10 to transfer all the files I need onto XP. And to make sure it'll actually show up in the first place, let's go ahead and set up a home or small office network here. We have the network setup wizard. So this computer connects to the internet through a residential gateway or another computer. And for the computer name, I'll just leave it as OptiPlex 380 because I don't have another OptiPlex 380 on the network. And workgroup just as workgroup to keep it simple. We do want to turn on file sharing. And let's just finish the wizard here. And just like that, we should hopefully have a connection with the Windows 10 machine now. And I guess we could also test out the internet, even though IE6 here is not really going to do anything. We do at least have a connection to the internet, which is awesome. So because we have this shared document folder, which is already configured to be visible on the network, I was able to just easily drag and drop everything onto the system here. For now, we will just install them and then transfer the drivers over to a safe spot just in case we need them again. So this first one is the Realtek audio driver. Just look at this Dell icon. That is awesome. And I will extract the file first. It'll go into a new folder within the C drive, a Dell folder for drivers. So we will click on OK. And then we can go into my computer, go into Dell drivers. Of course, we're going to continue with the install here. And we have this even older installation page here. And after a restart, it's a fantastic login sound, and we can actually hear what's going on. So we still need the video driver and the SM bus controller here. This one here is the chipset driver. And of course we're going to open this. We're going to do the exact same process. It'll go into a new folder here within the Dell folder. And before I forget, we're going to move this over into the shared folder, just so they're all in one spot. Now this is actually a bit newer than I would expect for XP, but again, it's a 2010 system, so it obviously has the newer Intel icon. It will hopefully fix XP here. So it's refreshing all of the everything, basically all the controllers, all the PTI lanes. Click on next. Another quick restart here. Always awesome to hear the log off sound. Take a tour of Windows XP. Alright, so we can go back here into shared documents, and all we have left now are the graphics drivers. Oh no! Your computer might be at risk. So let's go ahead and open this. Install it into the folder again. This actually has a different Dell icon. It's a bit newer. It doesn't have that 3D design. But we can go back into my computer. So here is the setup. Please install the latest version of Microsoft.NET. Now, this will probably not work, so I guess before we do this, now's a good time to check out Legacy Update. So going to Legacy Update here, it brings us to essentially the modern version of old Windows Update. So we just need to click on Setup Legacy Update. And we might as well enable the Windows Embedded 2009 updates because extra updates is always cool. Yeah, you can see that we definitely need the driver updates for the graphics. And just like that, it's going to check for the updates. Now, because this is the first time we've opened up the application, it will take a while to gather all the necessary updates. Now, this is, of course, Service Pack 3, so it's not like we have a completely out-of-box experience here, so we don't have to update as much. And as for Device Manager, as you can see, the only thing we have left now are the graphics drivers. Just like back in the day, we now have updates available. Now, before we install these, because a lot of these are for the 2009 edition of Embedded, we are going to clear these for now, and I want to install just the .NET Framework update here, so that way we can get the graphics drivers up to date. So after a quick restart, we should now be able to install the graphics drivers. And I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but this is a standard 32-bit copy of XP. Now, I'm sure this could easily run a 64-bit version of XP, but I want to have this as a standard XP machine, which also has compatibility for older systems and older software. Besides, XP can support even newer hardware than this, so if I was going to test out a 64-bit copy, it would be pretty cool to test it out with a late-era system. So this time, we can actually open up the Graphics Media Accelerator driver, and of course, let's go ahead and finish this up. So upon the restart here, it automatically changed the resolution of Windows. So if we go into Properties and we go into Settings, it changed it to 1280 by 1024, which is the actual native resolution of this panel. It even detects the type of panel. It's a SyncMaster 760 TFT. So that is really awesome to see. And of course, color quality has selected it to be 32-bit, the highest. Refresh rate is 60 Hz. It is an older panel, so that's to be expected. Of course, if it was a CRT display, I'm sure we could increase that even further. We might as well change this to Performance. And if we go into Power, we might as well do Maximum Performance here to make this the ultimate gaming machine. So you can see the big difference here in screen real estate, and at this point I'm just gonna wait for everything to install because it'll take a while, but because it is a newer system, it should hopefully be a lot faster compared to an even older XP machine. And as well as these optional updates, I guess we will install the Samsung one as well, just because. I might wait on Media Player because this does have the older version. I believe it's Media Player 9. So the download size is only 435 megabytes. You'd be lucky to have that amount of RAM usage in Windows 11 nowadays. And of course, because it is 32-bit, it's all for x86 here. And because we do have our airport, everything should hopefully be a very fast and very smooth install process. The airport itself is actually right there. So with the help of Legacy Update, Windows itself is now up to date, and honestly, it probably could have been way worse in terms of how long it took. With all of that out of the way though, now we can focus on some real gaming performance. So I want to test out DXDiag here just to see the specifications again, and we also have a pretty cool benchmark utility within this tool. So obviously it's XP Professional. It does detect it as a Dell computer, specifically the OptiPlex 380, which is awesome. Here we have that Pentium again, 2 gigabytes of RAM, and if we go into display, we can see that it's the Intel registered trademark G41 Express chipset. So I guess that means it's 36 times faster than the G5. And apparently it's even using 1 gigabyte of the 2 gigabytes of system RAM for the GPU. It's also really cool to see that it does detect the display again. Now, it's not the 760 TFT, it's the 760V TFT. But apparently, there's even a 780 model, and of course, because this is the ultimate gaming machine, within DirectX here we have both Direct Draw and Direct 3D acceleration enabled. And the cool thing about the Direct 3D test here is if we click on this, we literally have an Xbox within this Dell. Now, how cool is that? Because of the shared folder within XP, I've also transferred over some applications from the Dell OptiPlex 3020, and if we go into my computer and go into shared documents, we can see that we have some pretty cool things to test out here. So first off, a modern web browser. We now have Supermium. So this is basically a modern version of Chrome for Windows XP. Now, I believe this also supports Windows Vista and maybe even Windows 7. It's the first time I'm using this browser. I typically use Firefox, whether it be modern Firefox on old macOS, or if it's a newer Mac system, I also use Safari. But regardless, it's still really awesome to see a modern web browser within XP here. And I know there's other alternatives as well, but I've wanted to try this one out because it's obviously intended for Windows. And I guess we could actually go to YouTube itself. It's able to play the video without any issue at all, and it just works. Now, I don't expect it to play 1080p 60 FPS video here because, well, there is no dedicated GPU, and I'm not entirely sure how well the Pentium is going to perform, but I guess if we look at the video about this desk itself that we're using right now, so playback is a little stuttery at some points, but it is working. I guess it would also help to disable all of these extra options here so that way the CPU doesn't have to render as much. Now, I don't plan on using this specifically for YouTube, but if I want to browse the modern web and even look at YouTube with this machine, we have that option. Just like with Firefox, I guess this would also be a great extension to install because this will help out with YouTube playback. So I think it is performing a bit better, but again, it would be nice to have a dedicated graphics card because there's only so much we can improve upon with the integrated chipset. It's now time for the ultimate gaming test, Half-Life 2. So we have Half-Life 2 Collector's Edition. Now this is an ISO file, so we also have WinCD emulator. We just need to open this up and install it. Now Windows 10 has this feature built in, so I can just mount the ISO as is, but obviously it's Windows XP. Now if we wanted to make this even more authentic, we could actually put the ISO onto a DVD, but we already have it on the system here, so let's just go ahead and install Half-Life 2. Now this is the way Half-Life 2 and Steam was meant to be used, on XP with this awesome user interface and of course the classic Bliss background. Now, if you're wondering how this is going to work in the first place, because it's obviously going to install Steam, and Steam doesn't work on XP anymore, this is actually an edition of Half-Life 2 where it's a very early version. I believe it's even one of the earliest ones from 2004, and even though it's going to install Steam, it's not going to ask us to sign in or connect to the internet to open up Half-Life 2. I've also used this specific copy with my 2001 Dell OptiPlex, and even though it does install under Windows XP, the integrated Pentium 3 chipset should technically work, but I don't have a proper dedicated GPU for that system, so it just crashes on startup. This Dell OptiPlex, however, is 6 years newer compared to Half-Life 2, so it should work even with just the integrated chipset. And of course, yeah, internet connection required because Steam, but let's just go ahead and continue. And around here we have only the fastest, greater than 1 megabyte. Now it'll create a new Valve folder for Steam and the other applications. Of course we want shortcuts because it just looks awesome. And because this is of course the collector's edition, it's not just Half-Life 2. We also have Counter-Strike Source and Half-Life Source. Dude! Half-Life registered trademark 2 has been successfully modified. And just like that, we've transported back in time to 2004 because we now have Counter-Strike Source, Half-Life 2, Half-Life Source, and of course the classic Steam icon, and even Supermium itself is an older version of the Chrome icon, which is awesome to see. Now this is wild. It's Half-Life 2 time. Now this is the future of gaming. Within options here, let's see what it defaulted the video settings to. So 1024 by 768. We could go up to 1280 by 1024, which is the LCD resolution. Of course, 4:3 because it's a 4:3 display. And as for the advanced settings here, everything is actually set to high. So that's how you know this is a real gaming machine.
Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman. Rise and shine. So wake up, Mr. Freeman. Wake up and smell the ashes.
Okay, first off, this is actually really smooth. And I think I'll turn down the audio just a bit. The speaker within the system is actually pretty nice. So this Dell does have pretty good built-in sound. So we went into no clip here just to see how well this system is capable of rendering the world in real time. This is really smooth. Now, to be fair, it is an older version of the game, but even with a lower end system like this nowadays, you can easily play games, you know, from this era or older or even something newer, especially if you install a dedicated GPU. And we can even access some secret areas here. So, okay, so you go here, and normally you can't go up here because it's literally nothing. That's it. And then Barney would bring you over here. Well, that guy just disappeared. And then you would go over here. So we just skipped a couple of cutscenes here. And afterwards, yeah, there is nothing else here because it hasn't loaded into the rest of the game. Oh, this is where Kleiner actually talks with Barney. So I went back to the main menu here just to test out some other chapters. And here we can start chapter 3 just because why not? So we are in the world now. Now, if you told me I was gaming on a Pentium, I guess I can kind of see it because, again, it is Half-Life 2, but this is working out so well. Okay, time for the real test. How well does it do explosions? This is a very playable experience. Like, integrated graphics, 2010 lower end hardware, only 2 gigabytes of RAM, and you can easily play this classic. Obviously, you can play this on even newer hardware, but still, it's a very good playable experience. And even with 4x3 here, it's working out very well. Come on. There we go. Okay, we already got the Lambda cache there. Here's some ammo. I told you this was the ultimate in gaming because it just works. "3D graphics, man!" Okay, where are you? There you are. Oh, there's more over here, too. Gotta love the physics engine here because it's only the most advanced in gaming. Here we have another Lambda cache. So maybe very rarely you'll have some slowdown whenever it's loading a new area. But honestly, if you just want to play the game, it works out very well. And just because, why not? We already have it installed. Let's check out Half-Life Source. So, the options for this are, yeah, we can definitely bump this up to the native resolution of the LCD. And advanced, yeah, I mean, of course this one is even older than Half-Life 2, so for this it definitely is capable of displaying in the best possible resolution. So now we are in the Zen level. And of course, yeah. Amazing game move. So as you can see, it's very loud and it is working out pretty well, even with a lot of explosions on screen. It's an ultimate gaming machine because it can easily play those intensive titles. And with that, I think we're at a good point to wrap up today's video. We got our Dell OptiPlex 380 upgraded with a new hard drive, a fresh copy of Windows XP, and Windows XP itself is up to date because of Legacy Update. So it's a very cool utility to have. And of course, having all of these classic Valve titles and a brand new web browser is always great to have on a Windows machine like this. If you enjoyed today's video, then consider leaving a thumbs up. And if you want to see even more awesome content about Windows, old Dell computers, and of course, Steve-approved Macintoshes, then consider subscribing. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.